Okay, Pat?
Yes, sir.
Selectmen, all ready? Okay, then I will call the June 19th, 2017 Select Board meeting to order and invite you to rise and join me in Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone here to tonight's Select Board meeting and just remind everyone, if you have a cell phone, if you could turn it off or turn it to silence anyway, that would be greatly appreciated. So thank you, and I think everybody signed in. If you hadn't, please do. Okay, so the next topic is agenda additions and changes. Mr. Manager, what do we have?
We got two items, sir. One is a memo from me to you regarding a draft request for qualifications for the executive search firm. This should be added to the consent agenda. It is proposed to be an action item for the July 13th meeting. And secondly, information from the Superior Court Environmental Division regarding a settlement agreement, the Allen Brook Development, Inc., on the sand extraction application.
Okay, that's it?
That's it.
Okay, I would take a motion to add these items to the consent agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, all those in favor of adding the settlement agreement and the draft request for qualification of executive search firm to the consent agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is public to be heard. That's the time for the public to speak to the Select Board on items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone here tonight wishing to speak to the Select Board at public to be heard? Irene?
I'll just mention that I went to a 3-hour demonstration at the Burlington Electric Department last week. It was about the Spillman system that we use for record keeping for the police functions. It can also be used for dispatch and analytics, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it.
Okay. Any main things that you learned on that?
Oh, all kinds of good stuff. I'm curious which modules we have, because I wasn't sure what we were seeing that we use already here versus what we need to use, but it occurred to me that some of the reporting we currently do manually might be something the machines could do for us.
Well, we use Spielman, and I don't know any more than that. But Spielman does have the new a new feature. The what is the one that keeps track of the demographics by area? CAD. It has a new CAD feature
Yes.
as well. And that's whether we have it on ours or not, but it is available with the Spielman. It's the extent of my knowledge.
I think the coolest thing for me was, as someone who worked on databases 30 years ago, this has all the visual features that you'd expect of a current database. So you can pull up a suspect on your screen and instantly see ties this person has to other people in your database. So you can sort of really visualize the web of potential crime in your area. To me, seeing was believing.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to our business items. And the first item of business are interviews. And as has been our practice for a while for the Select Board, is for reappointments, we invite those who are up for reappointment. We first of all thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being willing to do the work you do, and to give you an opportunity to talk to the Select Board about things you'd like to share with us. For example, maybe the top items you're working on, or things that are going particularly well or not particularly well that you think the Select Board should know about. So with that, and then the Select Board will be going into executive session at the end of, towards the end of the agenda, where we'll have a discussion about the different appointments and so on, and we'll come out and take action on reappointments. And so I just want to let you know that's the process. And what I'd like to do is just go down in order on here. Paul's back, great. So for the first interviews, and I'd like to invite you to join us at the table up here. There's a microphone, and the first is Jeff Carr, who's our Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission Essex Rep. So welcome, Jeff, and you've been at this for how many years now?
depends how you count it, because, yes, I am signing up for 2 more years of abuse, service. I've been 16 years as the MPO rep,
Right.
and that dating back to August of 2001.
CCMPO.
And then, when I was board chair of the MPO, I spearheaded the consolidation of the RPC and the MPO, and then your lack of wisdom appointed me to continue as the RPC rep
Yeah.
going forward. So it's been
It was a wise choice.
It's been a long haul. I've been gradually disengaging from my boards, so I'm down to 2. The RPC rep and the Tri-Town representative for one of the 2 representatives, along with the distinguished Public Works Director of the town. So those are the only 2 I have left. And the RPC, I think, in part because of the MPO funding and because of the regional issues that we deal with that do have local ramifications, they're probably, that's probably the most important board appointment outside of the rank and file things that this board does and on behalf of the community. So I spend a lot of time conversing with mainly Public Works or the town manager's office or members of the select board when issues come up. Everybody who's a select person, whenever there's an RPC issue of importance, or whether, I know you see the minutes, I know you get on the distribution list for documents, if you have any questions. I answer my email pretty well, and I also answer phone calls even when I have to hold the phone out here on them. I represent the community, but I don't take a homer approach when it comes to things, because I think the RPC has an important regional function. One of the most recent examples of that is I serve on the Finance Committee, and I also serve on the Board Development Committee for my 2 committee assignments on the RPC. And Board Development went through a revision of the bylaws, which implemented the enabling legislation that came down from the state, which allowed for a council of government type service delivery network to be housed at the RPC, which has kind of been intertwined and mixed with regional dispatch issues. That wasn't the reason that it was done, but it was one of the things that kind of drove the change in the bylaws to allow for a council of government like service delivery system on behalf of the member communities to do that. I'm also on the Finance Committee, so there's a lot of oversight of the federal, state, and municipal funds that come from our assessments. For that, you may not know, all the members may not know, but some do. I'm also the village's second alternate, and I typically serve at least 1 or 2 meetings a year where I'm representing both the town outside the village and the village at the MPO for weighted votes and also for RPC votes. I've never seen the interests of the village and the town outside the village diverge in any significant way. So I don't see it as as an issue that is, can result in any conflicts or anything like that. I may not, have perfect information sometimes about things like design standards and those types of things that sometimes are important, much more important to the village than because of their compact settlement patterns versus the town outside the village. But I've yet to run into an issue where the interests of the town outside the village and the town inside the village have diverged on that. We do a variety of things, ranging from probably the most important function, which is the development of the Chittenden County Transportation Improvement Program, known as the TIP, which because the CCMPO, the Chittenden County Metropolitan Planning Organization, is the only metropolitan planning organization in the state. As soon as we approve the Chittenden County Transportation Improvement Program, it immediately becomes part of the state Transportation Improvement Program, and then we have to fight about whether or not they put what they need to in capital budgets and things like that and in the state thing. So that's an important function. We do have significant planning things that are going on. One of the things that the CCRPC now is in the middle of, which I know is important to several members on the board, is we're part of developing the standards for siting renewable energy as part of the state's public service board's effort to try to draw a better, for lack of a better term, disaggregation of responsibilities between the local municipalities and the state. I will tell you that I have a much different view of local responsibilities when they're merchant generation projects versus, solar panels put on tops of people's houses or a windmill put behind a school. And I think that it's important because the state's never going to give up jurisdiction on those, and I think we undermine our credibility when we try to play homer politics with interfering with siting for merchant generation facilities. So that's just an example of, while I represent the community, the town outside the village, sometimes the town inside the village at the same time, I believe that there's an important regional function that shouldn't be dismissed. We also are involved in approving town plans, and I take a great interest in the communities that abut us. In that regard, we also, have a significant role in what we do in terms of changing the requirements of the town plans and how they come forward. We implement a work program that's in part given to us by the State Agency of Commerce and Community Development, but at the same time, we all know that we provide services to our member municipalities, which are pretty important, and I think the town outside the village makes a pretty good use of what's needed when we need it without being greedy. There's a whole bunch of other things where we work on. Tactical basin plans. I just went through the last 3 months and I wrote down the list of things which kind of scared me. Clean water. Also, as part of the bylaws, we now have a standing committee, Clean Water Committee at the RPC, which is going to be important in terms of representation and clean up of the lake, whatever financing program comes down the road. And we also have been involved in tactical basin plans, as well as hazardous mitigation plans. And we even rejiggered the scenic byways plan, which doesn't have any money, but we still had a little bit of money left over, and we're hoping that someday maybe something will come back down the road where we can kind of, do those types of things to promote the scenic byways, which I think are important to our travel and tourism visitors and that type of stuff. The other thing that I do as part of the finance committee is we also are engaged with the auditors. That's done every year, and our responsibility is to review the audit and to make sure that there are management procedures put in place to deal with things like disaster recovery in case something happens in the offices, which are not too far from the Winooski River in downtown Winooski, although they are on the transit system where they hadn't been before they had gotten there. That was another thing that I did when I was board chair. I relocated the offices from Kimball Avenue to West Canal Street in Winooski, so it was on the transit system. And that's helpful, particularly when our folks come in to talk to us about what they want for our annual program called the MTP, which is really the operating program and budget for the RPC. It's not an insignificant budget. It's about half the size of the town's budget, so that's pretty significant to be doing for planning purposes. And like I said before, it comes from a variety of grants, state funding, and support from our member municipalities.
Okay, great summary. Thank you. I'd like to open it up to the board. Any questions for Jeff?
One more thing, Mr. Chair, if you don't
Yes.
mind. I'm absolutely willing to continue in this.
Good point.
But I have never said that I would continue in this position if a sitting select board member wants to be the RPC representative. If an RPC representative if you want another couple of nights a month, I recommend that you take about a 2-year lead time, because the learning curve, particularly for the transportation funding issues, is particularly steep. And the only other thing you should know is, and this is a scary thought, I am now the institutional memory on the RPC for the Metropolitan Planning Organization. I think I'm the second longest serving member on the RPC right now, which I never thought I'd live to see.
And again, we're very fortunate that you're willing to be in that position, so thank you, Jeff. Okay, so yeah, any questions for Jeff? Anybody? On the funding piece, is there much federal funding that comes through?
Well, there always is for transportation program.
Yeah,
For the transportation program, and we have a constrained federal budget for programs that qualify in the TIP. There are some funds that come through the MPO for like the airport and for the interstate that are not constrained. But everything that we do, and my pet peeve right now is how can we get Route 117 done while we're still trying to work out our differences with the state on the culvert issue by the pump station on River Road.
Right.
But, those are constrained funds. Those move around. They move around on the basis of where we are in terms of scoping studies and getting rights away when we have projects to do and those types of things. I think the projects that have happened in places like Sand Hill Road and some of the other things that have happened over the recent years have been very helpful to the community. We see some projects that are happening out here and some of the things that have happened as a result of the end of the CERC funding and how we participated, and I think several members, and I think Patrick included, participated in the CERC Alternatives Task Force, which I think was a very, I don't think we'll ever get the same congestion relief that A and B of the CERC
Right.
probably would have assisted with, but at least we've got some things to relieve some of the bottlenecks, not the least of which also affect surrounding communities, particularly Williston, which are on some of our major corridors and are used by many of the people who live in our community and also who come through from the outside through our community as they're commuting to work.
So are you anticipating any big changes from the federal funding come October timeframe?
Well, not
Is it?
not like there is for other programs that are part of the president's budget. There are longer-term funding issues for transportation that have to do with the reauthorization of the various acts, whatever they call the act, which involves with allocating transportation funding source like the federal gas tax revenues and some of the other revenues that come in to that. We've always seemed to have done well in Vermont through the state because of the quote-unquote minimum allocations that have happened, and I think one of the things that we have our eye on is whether or not in the world of the new administration, whether they might do something, because face it, we are a blue state, to affect the minimum allocations that have happened, and which would
Right.
affect several states, not the least of which are blue. And so when we're talking about changing things that have to do with state and local tax deduction, which is an anti-blue state proposal under federal tax reform, we always have to be concerned about those types of things. But the types of things like the 30% reductions in, foreign aid and those types of things are not the types of things that hit transportation funding because that's authorized under Surface Transportation Act.
Okay, good. And lastly, you said you're the second alternate for the village.
Yep.
On this. Do you see an opportunity for consolidation there to have one rep to represent both the village and outside the village
In due time, Mr. Chair.
in due time? Okay.
Probably not now, but there are no differences between the two. And, we sit together. I know the vice president of the village, who's the representative for the village. I know the first alternate. I regularly talk to people in the village, including the village's representative. We have coffee regularly to talk about what we need to, what about the RPC's book, can we work together on? And, even though Burlington has, multiple votes, South Burlington has multiple votes, the town of Essex, between the village and the town outside the village, have 2 votes, just like, some of the other.
Right. But if
Some of the other
if
communities.
it did consolidate, then you would retain 2 votes, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's a function of population. And so when if you were to consolidate the positions, you would have a population that exceeded the 2-vote level.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Again, we do really appreciate the service that you provide to the town.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
I anxiously await.
Okay. Be in contact tomorrow.
If you'll excuse me, I've heard all this before.
Not a problem. Yeah.
So I'm going to go home.
Okay, have a great evening. Thanks for coming in. Okay, we're going to go down the list here, and is it okay, Marty and Paul, if we bring you up together?
Yes.
Okay, so what? What's that? So again, welcome to you both, and for serving on the Green Mountain Transit Board. Now, Marty, you're currently the alternate.
No, I'm currently the representative.
You're currently the rep. Okay,
Yes.
and Paul is the alternate.
Is the alternate.
And you'd like to
Switch roles.
switch roles. Okay.
We would.
So why don't you just tell us some things you'd like to share with the select board? Maybe some of the top items you're working on, things going well, maybe things that aren't going well you'd like to share with us.
Okay. Last year, I've been on the as representative for the last 2 terms, which is 6 years, so I've been there one of the longer people. Some of the institutional knowledge that is there, I think, yes, for GMT. And as you know, we've had a pretty rocky last few years because we've gone through 2 general managers that for a variety of reasons had to, left the company. And so we've tried to, this year, really focus on scaling back a little bit. We did a lot of things also last year. We did a lot of projects. There was the Downtown Transit Center. There were just all kinds of things that we were doing that we said, and we had Route Match, which is the new system that allows you to be able to look and see where the bus is and when it's going to come, and all kinds of things associated with that, and that was associated also with the Downtown Transit Center. So we decided this year that because of all turmoil and everything, first of all, we did hire a new general manager, and it happened to be the operations manager that was already in place. Very well liked by the people, by the employees, very well thought of, came from Nashua, where he was in a circumstances about the same size that we had here. And so he's been very, very good. He's a very good calming influence, and that was what we thought that we really kind of needed right now. So we, right now, we're doing the contract with the maintenance people, and that looks like that's going to be going very well, but I can't really share some numbers with you right now because there's some voting going on and some of the other things that we needed to look at. But we decided also then to just look at everything and scale back a little bit and say, okay, let's look at the basics and how are those going, and let's get the basics where we want them to be, and let's not be distracted by a lot of other things. Let's just get back to the basic operation and be sure for the year that we are definitely on the track we want to be on. So that was the course of action that we're taking for this year. But we do have some things that are going to be on the plate. One of them is that we have a large project that's just beginning that's going to look at all of the routes that we have, the bus routes. Because what has happened over the years is you started out with a nice loop and the bus was going around and everything was fine. Now you have, we've talked to somebody and something needs to be changed there. So now the bus isn't quite going around the same way. It goes off on the side and goes around here and comes back. And so you have the continuity of that route is really, in many cases, particularly around in the Burlington area itself, is really compromised. So we hired a company that is looking at all of the routes. They're going to determine, be able to tell us which routes will be the most productive for us, which ones will be the most cost-effective for us. They'll redesign some of the routes for us so we have some choices of what we might do. I know some people might worry, well, is cost going to be the only thing that you do? No. I'm sure when we get down to looking at the bottom line, we'll be saying we need to serve a certain area, and we may have to not be quite as productive there because of particularly in the rural areas, it gets a little difficult. But I think it's going to be the best thing that we've done in forever. We haven't looked at those routes forever. And to be able to actually optimize them, I think will be the greatest thing we've done in a long time. Also, along with that, we will probably be deciding some things this year about fares. Also how we know that federal funding may not be the same as it's always been, so we're trying to kind of prepare for that and be sure that we have all the information together that we need to have so we can make some informed decisions when and if some things come down where we're not quite as flush with government money as we've had in the past. So that's another thing we've looked at, we'll be continuing to look at is natural gas buses versus electric, although we've pretty much for last year said natural gas is off the table because we had to order 11 new buses, But with the natural gas, we had a project that went on with the gas company. We would have had to have invested in an infrastructure on our property to service those gas buses. We felt like that was not something that we wanted to commit to in the long term, we needed to wait to see where electric buses were going to go and see if that wasn't maybe the way that we ought to go. So what we ended up doing is we ordered 11 buses that were diesel, which is what we currently have. But diesel now is becoming much cleaner than it was. So rather than invest a lot of money in something we weren't sure of, we went ahead and ordered, we needed buses right away, so we went ahead and ordered those buses. And that was, I think, the smart way to do that. And then we'll be making some decisions. We've already done a pilot with one of the electric buses, just to see how it ran. Is it going to be able to go up the hills that we have, and that type of thing. So we're going to be working very closely with the electric company to see what we can do with that, and see if they can be of any help as far as funding is concerned. So that's one of the things. Let's see. What I did when this past 3 years has been, I've been serving on the finance committee, and as the committee chair, and so I'm hoping that with they're going to try to keep me on that committee because, again, institutional knowledge, one of the few people that has any kind of long-term memory of what went on and what went on with the budgets. So we hope that that's going to bring some continuity. I'm not sure where Paul will end up, but I'm sure he's going to be on something that we need very badly, so that will be good. The alternate can serve on the committees. It's just that we cannot vote. We are not a voting member, but we can serve, and they do encourage us to serve on the committees. So that will be a good thing for us. Yes. We had the audit that was completed this year showed that we needed to, and this is part also of the pullback, that we needed to be looking at our policies, being sure that they were updated. Our purchasing policy was one that came up. There was nothing significant other than we had wording in there that was old. We wanted to maybe tighten up some things a little more than we had. So the purchasing policy is, I believe, in the next few weeks will be ready to be voted on, and we'll be able to, and we've updated that to take care of some of the problems that we think that we had. Trying to think if there's anything else that.
Maintenance manager.
Oh, we have a new maintenance manager as well.
Who's actually the old.
And he was
maintenance manager.
actually the old maintenance manager. And and everybody he's very well liked, he's very well respected. I think that he's going to do a lot with the maintenance people to be able to get them back on track. I think there was some, they were beginning to feel a little bit like they were not being supported as much as they liked. So I think that this is going to take care of that. They especially think he's a great person to work for. So I think that will be
Great.
good as well.
Thank you. Paul, did you have anything else you like to add?
I think Marty's covered everything pretty much. She's a very faithful member. I do try to keep up by looking at minutes. I've been to a couple of meetings. But it's an organization that I've enjoyed. I was an alternate when I was in Shelburne, and obviously I was there for a few months as an interim general manager, so I've enjoyed the business very, very much. It's a great organization, one that's very much needed in the region, which goes all the way to Lamoille and Washington, Franklin, and Grand Isle counties. So I would look forward to serving.
And you have the time commitment available then
I do. I'm
become
finishing
the
up
primary?
an interim position here at the end of the week. So
Okay, so you'll
I'll
just
be
kind of
free.
swap those slots. Okay, great. Thank you both. Open up to the board. Any questions or comments?
Just kind of a silly one, the maintenance manager who was and then wasn't and then was again, I'm assuming just took some time off in between or went in another direction and then has returned home to the nest, or how did that work?
The last general manager that we had brought this person in from out of state, somebody that she had worked with and thought highly of.
Right.
And so the other manager was let go, the maintenance manager was let go. So when the new group came in and that general manager left, the general manager that came in under her wing
Yep.
was replaced with the manager that had previously been there. So that is how that
Yep.
kind of switched.
I might say though, Mike, that Pete is a gentleman's name, and it was a very pressure-packed situation when the strike going on, all those things that occurred.
Sure.
And so he made it through that, but at that point, he was actually looking, and he found a position, I think in South
I
Carolina,
think he
North
did.
Carolina.
Yep.
Tried it out, and didn't really like it, and just happened that there was an opening back here at GMT. He saw it, after, late in the process,
Right.
actually.
Sure.
But the GMT is very fortunate to have him back.
Well,
He's,
it's
very,
great when
very
things
good.
like that work out. It's
Very good.
it's very good. Thank you.
Irene, did you?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the different energy options. When you said diesel, is some of that biodiesel, or is it straight, same old diesel that we've seen for
It
decades?
was, it's the, I don't know a whole lot about it, other than it was, I believe it's just it was straight diesel, but my understanding is that there's new things now that have been put onto the diesel buses that make them much, much cleaner than they had been in the past, so it wasn't like saying we're just bringing the same old diesel buses back. Do you know if they're biodiesel?
I know that diesel engines in
Yeah,
general,
yeah.
you'll hear complaints from truckers, all the things they've done to diesel engines, but they are very clean. And I think one of the keys with GMT is, you're looking at costs all the time. And they are the most efficient, they're the most efficient to run. They're cheaper than natural gas to run. They would have to remake their maintenance shop in order to turn over and start working on natural gas. So, and the buses themselves are less expensive than they are natural gas. So from a financial point of view, it made a lot of sense, and they are clean, so it's a good decision, I think.
What's the average life of a diesel bus, or any bus for that matter? I would imagine that depending upon the fuel, does that impact the average life?
I think the buses,
I don't
they try to keep them no more than 10 years.
Yeah.
Yep, and there's a group of probably 4 to 6 buses that are older than that, so
Right.
it's a fairly old fleet.
And we needed to be replacing right away. We couldn't, wait any longer. We had to make
Right.
that decision pretty quickly.
Right. Understood. Thank you.
Andy?
Yeah, I guess it was a couple months ago, there were a lot of comments on Front Porch Forum about complaining about the cost of the electric bus. Any response to that or comments? Do you have any of the results of that pilot?
Yeah, and we still are just looking at the electric buses. There aren't any, we haven't made any decision about that. To my knowledge, there hasn't been a really long study of that. I think we're working with the power company to understand more. But right now, I feel like we're just in the throes of, let's try it out. Let's see whether it really is going to perform the way we think it will. These kinds of considerations because of the weather that we have, and that, what are the things that slow us down? What are give us some feedback from the drivers, customers. So I think that we're not far enough down where we're really getting totally serious about it, and we have all of the information that we need to.
Might be able to add a little bit to that. The Burlington Electric Department has grant money that they would like to see. It's their efficiency money that they get in their bills. They'd like to spend some of that on the bus, but it still leaves a pretty big shortfall towards the cost. And so I think unless BED, the city, or the state comes up with significant more funds, then it probably will not be an electric bus on the road.
Okay, anything else? Anybody? So the company that you hired to look at the efficiency of the different
The routes.
routes, is federal funding tied to certain metrics of efficiency of routes? I thought there was some sort of tie-in between the two.
My understanding is that this was simply for us to be able to manage our routes more effectively, to be more cost-effective, to see what we can do about the mishmash of things that we have on some of these routes and figure out how we can streamline them more productively. That was my understanding of why we were
Okay.
doing this.
Okay, sounds like
There
it's a
are-
good
there
idea.
are metrics.
But
that
there are
you
metrics,
mentioned.
yeah,
There's a
there are.
metrics of riders per mile is one metric they get measured on, and cost per mile, I think is the other one. Those are the two big ones that there are funds that are attached to that.
Okay, so you try to work those numbers to try to get maximize the funding. Sue?
I'm just curious, once you go through the effort of optimizing the routes, how do you prevent them from creeping back to those.
That's a really, I'm glad you asked that question. That is a problem, because what happens is, we're responding all the time to communities, and I think we just have to, the thing is, we have to really be aware of what we're doing more so than in the past, because I think that the federal and funding that comes down probably is not going to be as generous as it has been, and we're going to have to make some harder decisions than maybe we had to do in the past. So, and we may have to find more ways to fund these things that maybe business can help if we want to do something a little differently on one of them. If there's a business that can help us support that is doing this for their employees or something. But maybe we can take a look at something like that. But I think that the idea is we want to optimize those routes as much as possible and not be deviating from that unless we have a really good reason to do that.
Okay. So thank you both again for doing what you do for our community and being willing to continue to serve, but in complementary roles. So again, we'll have a discussion in executive session, and we'll come out and have a decision, and you'll hear from the manager's office tomorrow.
Thank you.
Alrighty,
So
thank you.
thank you. Have
Thank
a great
you
evening.
both.
Okay, then next up is Justin St. James on the Trails Committee. Welcome, Justin.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks again for your service and for coming in tonight to talk with us. So, as you've heard, things you want to share with us, perhaps things that are going well, things you're working on, things that aren't going well, maybe something about consolidation.
Yeah, certainly all of those. And just for perspective, it does feel like I've been here a lot recently. And I think maybe we all share that. It's only been maybe 6 or 7 months, so my perspective is sort of a snapshot in time, of course.
Relatively new. Yeah.
Exactly, filling out a different commission. So I would say in my day job, I'm a municipal staff. I'm a city attorney in Burlington. So sort of my perspective has generally been staffer. So I sort of come into this new to the committee, but sort of recognize, the habits and what works and sometimes what doesn't. The Trails Committee has been great. I think it's a small committee, 5, that has faced a bit of a bit of adversity with one member who is gone in the winter. We've had a little bit. We've had wonderful staff people and help from Greg. We did have a little staff turnover due to a personal situation in terms of. So it has been a bit maybe hard to get footing, just because when you have sometimes having fighting to get a quorum, it is a bit tough to get momentum for the next. To keep projects going. So, we are excited in July. We're ready to roll out and start promoting the Trail Keeper program, which is trying to promote and inform the community about options, maybe some of the lesser traveled options compared to Indian Brook, for instance, and trying to get some folks attached to it and help with marking and clearing and sort of the adoptive road idea in terms of fostering some knowledge about alternate trails and recreation opportunities, and we certainly have some goals we're working on in terms of mapping and some continuing sort of the good work we've been working on. Obviously, the big elephant in our committees, since we do joint DRB sort of function with the Conservation Committee in the first half of our meetings. There had been a synergy there, and I think perhaps earlier, as I understand it, the Conservation Committee, which is sort of humming on all cylinders now, maybe went through a similar situation where they were, fighting for quorums and some of those issues. So there'd been the talk that I think is on item number G potentially tonight for you, which is the consolidation. Our thought being that, something I particularly think very highly of, is that sort of the consolidated forces of everyone pulling the cart in the same direction, because it has been sort of, we each have similar but divesting interests, but they're sort of aligned, but then, we're each sort of splitting up, and maybe we thought that it could be better to marshal our forces and to every time have sort of, I think the idea as proposed is potentially have 9 or 7, would we end up? 7 staff people, boy, that's slipping back in. I have to go back to work actually right after this. So the brain usually staff. 7 committee members. I think through attrition the goal would be so as no one's getting forced out, but for instance, Darren is transitioning, luckily, into
Employee.
town service. But the idea being that potentially a little more focused joint forces together, we can then really make some progress on our joint missions of both the conservation trails, which I think the proposal is to keep the name in some order. I don't know who got the lucky order to go first, but so that's where it is. I think it's a bit of a trying to just get its footing going, and I think that's where we are. But I think there's good work to be done, and I think we're committed. We have a great chair who I think you're going to hear from in Section G as well. So I would say we're through the winter and we are getting going is how I would sort of frame it in my perspective. So there's lots of reason for optimism, and I think for what it's worth, I think consolidation would be a very interesting idea in terms of for the committees.
Sort of a theme, anyway.
Certainly that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Justin. Thanks for that background. Open it up to the board. Any questions or comments for Justin? Oh, yes, and I didn't have any either. But thank you
Let
for.
you get some more time under your belt, and then we'll
yeah.
get
Well,
to the next time.
So thank you for stepping up and being willing to continue. And as you heard multiple times, you'll hear from somebody from the manager's office tomorrow.
I bated breath.
Yes.
Thank you. I do.
Don't
have to
lose
go.
sleep on it.
I'm gonna go work. I don't mean to be rude, but
Yep.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Okay, next up for the Winooski Valley Park District Rep is Tom Malinowski, a neighbor of mine. Hello, Tom. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Thank you for coming tonight, and thank you so much for your service to the community.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
So, feel free, we'd like to hear from you about what's going on.
Okay. I prepared notes, so I'm going to read from my script, and if you guys have questions,
Prepared.
just jump right in. So here's my experience as Essex trustee to the Winooski Valley Park District. In the last 2+ years, I've served as Essex trustee. I've worked hard to understand the WVPD mission statement, their values to the River Valley, and their outreach to the community. I've watched the Winooski Valley Park District manage 1,750 acres of land and 17 parks with their fixed financial limits. I now understand the wide berth of park users and all those who have different interests at the parks. The trustee meetings are well attended by all the municipalities in the district. Highlights in the last 2 years. The Winooski Valley Park District has become more reliant financially by generating income from camps, programs, and facility rentals. This additional income has helped limit requested budget increases from the municipalities in the WVPD. They have involved kids with natural area experience and wildlife education like Conservation Field Day. This year, 5th grade classes from Founder School attended, and they were on site at the Ethan Allen Homestead here in May of 2017. They attend every year. My involvement as Essex representative, in the last 2+ years, I've attended all but one trustee meeting. I've connected the Center for Technology in Essex to the WVPD and have worked with them on technology-based projects with the Park District. I volunteered this year in 2017 for Conservation Field Day, which is a large-scale event for 5th graders in all of the county for students on environmental education. Essex school kids were there. I've also volunteered in May of 2017 at a Champlain College Service Learning Seminar to gather ideas to bring awareness to park users as to who is the WVPD, asking this question: how does the WVPD gather data to improve the quality for their park users and then report that back to the towns? So for 2017, 2018, and beyond, I plan to support the executive director in long-range planning for the WVPD, including review of funding formula for all our municipalities. And in the summer of 2017, survey park users to get input as to the benefit of the WVPD and to make our cities and towns aware of those survey results, essentially asking the question, how does the Winooski Valley Park District benefit all of us? Also in 2017, we plan on opening park number 18, which is the Wolcott Family Natural Area on 62 acres in Colchester by year-end 2017. That will be the 18th park in the district. Also planned for this year will be to support expanded use of social outreach and low-cost events to expand the reach and awareness for the WVPD park users. In summary, for me, I think this has been a good appointment. I'm an outdoors kind of guy, and I enjoy working with the Park District, and if you guys are okay with it, I'll stay on. Any questions?
Excellent summary, thank you. Yeah, any questions for Tom? Comments? It's a great district. Looks like it's run well, and I know a lot of residents use it.
Yes,
And,
yeah, exactly.
You're obviously very involved in your service there, so we appreciate that.
Yep, you're welcome. Happy to help out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
welcome.
you know the drill. You've
Yep.
heard it many times. Okay. Thanks again,
you.
Tom. Thanks for coming in. Okay, next up for Memorial Hall Committee and the CCRPC, we have Selectman Irene Renner. No need to move.
Okay.
So, what would you like to share with us about those two? You can start on either
Okay,
one
well,
first.
the Memorial Hall Committee is an easy one because they meet very, very rarely. So it makes it easy to be on that committee. I love history. I want to see the building preserved. I'd love to see more done with it, as in more energy efficient type of weatherization, but I know it's really hard to do with a building like that. But that's with one eye on the budget. It'd be nice not to have to spend so much money heating the whole environment in Essex Center, but it happens. Not much to say about it, but I'm willing to entertain any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions? Andy's hand went up. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the question I've asked before. Is the committee still relevant? I mean, if you haven't met, I don't know when the last time you met was, and is there anything that committee does that this group couldn't do if something came up with regard to something that needed to be done for Memorial Hall? What's I don't know.
I can't speak for the committee. As a selectman, I think there's a lot of interaction that we have with the Public Works Department and the Recreation Department that would overlap. And that the select board could do if the committee was not to meet again.
You asked when they last met. Do you know when the last meeting?
6 or 7 years ago, maybe? It's been a while.
It's been a while.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. You said there was an overlap. Did you mean that in a good way or in?
That if the Memorial Hall Committee ceased to exist, the select board would be making the same decisions I've seen us make over the past couple of years as to public works decisions and recreation department
Okay.
decisions
Okay.
that govern that building, because those are the two departments that seem to be in there doing the most
Right.
town-related activity.
Okay, other questions for Irene on the Memorial Hall Committee?
And Pat's also a member, so I don't want to, speak out of turn here, in case you want to add anything.
Well,
do
I'm a biased member of the committee. I love the building, have always loved it. Great believer in historic preservation. From a practical standpoint, Irene is right. We haven't had a meeting. There hasn't really been a need for a meeting because there hasn't been a lot of money available to do a lot of different things. Parks and Rec somewhat helps out with the keeping the building alive and well with the programs. The players are there, and Dennis Lutz is sort of through his buildings management, takes care of any major things that come up, and also if there's any money to be spent, it would normally come through the capital budget. So it does get a lot of staff, not a lot, it does get staff attention for a building as old as it is. Whether or not Memorial Hall needs to continue on is maybe a question for, another agenda item. I know that when I first came to town, it was a hugely popular building. There was a lot of energy behind it. A whole group of people had gotten together to help raise money for both the library and Memorial Hall. And I don't know where all those people are now, but I do know that if for some reason there was a negative aura cast over the building, we would discover that many of them may still be around. But it's difficult when you don't have any reason to meet for a committee, and we're asking people to serve on a committee, and then we're not taking advantage of their skills and abilities. So
Yeah, so
that's
maybe-
the conundrum I think that we face.
Yeah, so maybe that is a good topic for a
Future
future
meeting.
agenda. Yeah. Any other questions for Irene on Memorial Hall?
I'm also not familiar with the process of disbanding a committee because I don't think we've done that during my select board tenure. So that's just a question. Someone else to do the research, right? And I hate to add anything else to your plates.
You could combine it with conservation.
There you go.
Yeah,
We can call it preservation conservation trails, right?
might be some opportunities there. Okay, so why don't we move on then to, you want to comment on the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission?
Sure, I'll just
As
say
the
that,
alt, right?
boy, are we lucky to have Jeff. With his institutional memory, every time I go to one of their meetings, which is once or twice a year when he's in China or somewhere else far away, I'm just really grateful for the respect accorded to Essex because of his contributions.
Very
There's always a
fortunate.
joke or two made because he's not there about what would Jeff say, or oh, Jeff would have been correcting these minutes even more, you know. So he has a huge amount of respect, well deserved, for what he has contributed and what he still contributes to that. So I'm very glad to serve as the alternate.
Okay, we'll open up to questions for Irene about the CCRPC.
Just say thank you for doing that and being willing to
Yeah,
do that.
thank you for your service on that.
Yep.
Good group.
Thank you, Irene. So there were 5 listed, but if I look in the audience, I see a member of the Energy Committee and some others. So would it be all right if they came here even though they're not listed? I think it would be appropriate to give them the opportunity. So first up, it looks like Christian. Would you like to join us? I know that you're a member of the Energy Committee. Welcome. Thank you for your service. Thank you for coming tonight. Even though you weren't listed in the interviews, don't think we aren't happy to have you here. So, yeah, is there things you'd like to share with us about your service on that committee?
Yeah, thank you for taking me for the interview. I'm on the group for 3 years now. And first, when I joined, the reason I joined the committee is to share my technical skill because my background is from electrical engineering. So that's what I do on a daily basis. And so far, I don't really, the committee didn't really use my skill. So that's what I can say. And I went to the last meeting. The most exciting project I think we did was the street lighting. That one is good because I can read the data sheet for the LED and know exactly what's going on. And the next move, if I look at city like Montreal, everybody is going for the LED lights, and the challenge now people are facing in Montreal is during the winter. You know, there is giant ice on this kind of light, and so the illumination really goes low, so people have to walk from light to light and break it. We're going to have the same issue here, but I don't know when it's going to show up. So that's one of the technical projects I really like to be involved in. Also, the solar energy project coming is really good because I think the committee will be able also to use my technical skill. Currently, I give myself 1 year, okay? Because when I went to last meeting, my plan was to step down. But based on the discussion with Will, I think I may be able to stay 1 year and look what the trend is. If there is some technical problem I can be involved in, I will stay. Otherwise, I think I will step down because I'm not really too good on Gerald's team. Currently, I'm also on the IEEE Technical Committee on Printed Electronics. I'm one of the guys who created the committee, but IEEE is an international organization. It's flexible electronics. What we do is the next generation of wearable devices. You put sensors on gloves, put some wireless device on it, and so you don't, when people run, they just get back home as soon as they cross the door. So all the information can go through the Wi-Fi, it's going to get displayed on the phone. That's what I'm currently doing. I created this committee myself, and we have a meeting last month in Baltimore to see what the trend is and get some company like DuPont involved on it. So I'm really a technical guy. So what I want to do in the committee is to have the committee using my technical skill. But if I saw the trend and not exactly the direction I want to go, I will step down. And as a background, I was working for IBM here in SS. And after 2 years, when the company changed, but not really doing why I joined the organization. I stepped down, and it's not a big surprise today because IBM is no longer do this chip design here in Vermont. But I just saw the trend coming, so I just stepped down. That's who I am. So if I'm somewhere and the trend and the direction of the organization is going didn't really use my potential, to be honest, I have to go. So currently, as I said, to make a long story short, I'm hoping to stay for 1 year and see what the trend is. And if there is some technical, I thought we will, and it looked like we're going to have some technical issue coming. And also one of the projects I have in mind is the automatic detection of faulty street lighting. That means if a bulb didn't work, we don't need to send someone there to check it. The way we need fund for that. Okay, that's the second problem of the committee. We don't have the money. So I have some idea for a project, but we don't have the money. So for the automatic detection of faulty light, I think we may need money for that, and I believe Irene will campaign for that. So maybe too. And that one is a fantastic project. People want to do something like that in Montreal too, because they send people from light to light to check it. And the plan is just to take a car going through the street. There is a wireless communication with the car and the light. We check the illumination, and from there, if there is some change, we can say that, okay, this light maybe need to be replaced. Then we send someone to replace it, not checking the light every day. That's one of the projects I would like the town to do. Okay, going to require money, I know, but that's not. But I think that yes, we can. So that's
Okay.
what I see.
Great. Thank you for your openness there. So I'll open it up to questions for Christian from the board, if you have any.
I'm just going to say thank you for being willing to give it another year and just see if it's going to fit with what you'd like to accomplish. Thank you for being willing to do that.
So,
So I'm on the Energy Committee with Christian. One of the challenges I think that you had was in actually attending the meetings, right? So is there something that's changed that you would then now be able to attend the meetings?
Yeah, as I said, yes, during the last meeting, the meeting, now my schedule changed. And so I teach on Wednesday morning.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to make things much easier for me. And one of the suggestions I made to read and will also, because I'm involved in some committee in Japan and everywhere in the world. I don't need to travel every time. Last month I was traveling everywhere. When I came back home, I was knocked down. Okay, so most of the time we use technology, and that one I try to push, because if the committee now have to embrace the technical challenge, which is some people can show up on a meeting, so they may be able to Skype for the meeting. That's something I think I talked with Will. I also try to push Reed on that direction maybe during the last 2 years, because on the committee, on the technical committee I'm involved, the meeting in Baltimore, not everybody show up. People in Tokyo, we have them live, they ask questions, they make their suggestions, we take notes. That's the new trend, and we have to face it. So if that also will be really good to attract other people joining the committee, because sometimes people just came back home at 6 or 7 or 6:30, they cook their meal, and now they have to run to the down. No, it's not really easy all the time to do that. Yeah, to answer to make a short story long, yeah, yeah, it's going to be possible, but also it's important now to to use the technology for the meeting. I think that will help a lot the committee too.
yeah, I remember when you came in for your interview, I remember that your background is very excited. that you'd be a member of that committee. So we hope that there's work there that will, meet your need to want to contribute, because I think we'd be the better for it. So, anything else? Any other questions, comments?
It just reminds me to ask if there could be some sort of instructions posted somewhere in this room now that it's operational, shall we say, so that when committees like the Energy Committee come in, we don't require a staff member to log us in and help us use the screens, because in order to Skype someone or in order to project some of the maps that we were trying to look at the last time we met, we were just sort of unable to use anything that was here, so.
Okay, so maybe a cheat sheet on how to
Yeah, that would be-
tap into those?
Not related to the interview, but when we met
Yeah.
last, we attempted to get in to use the display and whatnot.
Okay, we're so close to having that technology at our
Right,
fingertips. It'd be nice
right.
Yes, we are.
to know how to do that.
Very
So,
tempting.
okay.
Use your cheat sheet.
Again, Christian, thank
Thank
you so
you.
much for your service
Appreciate
and
it.
willingness to give it another try. So, thank you.
I can-
Okay, I thought so. Okay, and last but not least, we have Eric McCarthy on the Trails Committee. So, thank you for coming tonight.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you for your service, and you know the drill. If you just want to tell us a little bit about what's going on and what you think we ought to know about.
Absolutely. I almost feel like I don't have to say anything because Justin was so eloquent earlier. No, I just kind of have to reiterate almost exactly what he's saying. You know, I've been on the board now for one term, so I've served 3 years. There has been an ebb and flow of committee members coming, including the previous chair, who had a really strong passion. Personal issues came up, and he removed himself from.
Right.
So we've had some issues in gaining traction. That leads us to kind of, leaning and looking at the Conservation Committee. We do serve similar roles in a lot of regards. I mean, we're both interested in trails and making sure that it's safe, whether it's an invasive species thing on the conservation side or maintenance on our side, kind of around those areas and stuff. I think it's important that, we can get the best of both worlds out of it. As Justin mentioned, and I had mentioned, there's an ebb and flow of people, and even gaining a quorum is difficult and had been difficult at times. So, reiterating on that, this will allow us kind of to have. I think it'll allow us to dive a little bit deeper into the conversations that we were unable to have after we split. So typically we would have our meeting, a joint meeting, kind of go over a few things, and then if something was a trails related, we go our way, and Conservation Committee would go their way. But the issue, sometimes arises where we need a little bit of conservation input in order to kind of, help make, steer our direction and stuff like that, and kind of help us out. So I think that's a big thing. The Trail Committee, the Trail Keeper program is probably our largest initiative now. And I think, again, kind of the same thing with having more people, 7 people on the board, and having some additional volunteers, and people have said that they want to kind of continue to help out, maybe not in a committee capacity, but just as volunteers, that it'll allow us to kind of, have a little bit more free time and send people off to, to take care of a few things. Part of what the Trails Committee was working on was getting a little bit more visibility in the community. So when we had, previous chair, we had been going over to Essex Farmers Market and set up booths and stuff like that. We do still continue to do the Trail Cleanup Day over at Indian Brook, but I think a lot of it, it will tie back to the Trail Keeper program. So the more community input we can have and the more people that we could have, that we touch and we talk to on a daily basis, the better off the Trail Keeper program is going to run. The faster it's going to get up and running, the smoother it's going to work. We'll have more eyes out there. We do focus on all the trails, everything that we can, but 5 people, if we can gain 20 by doing this program, I mean, it's fantastic. It just gives us a little bit better visibility. On that as well, the Trail Keeper program was started as an initiative by the Trails Committee, but I think it would also benefit the Conservation Committee as well. They can let us know if those folks have, their master gardeners out there or something like that, that can say, hey, there's invasive species on this trail. They can inform us, let us know what's going on and stuff. So it's kind of an interesting program, and everything really kind of ties back to bringing, the two committees together. I really can't talk, enough about it. What else did I have? I was taking a couple of notes as Justin was talking. I figured that'd be the easiest way to do it. Make sure I didn't miss anything. That's what it was. No, I think currently we have a few members that will be leaving, at some point relatively soon. So attrition will naturally occur anyway. And there have been conversations regarding that and stuff. And there's no issues, no hard feelings or anything like that, which is nice. So I think it's kind of, and you'll hear later, so I'll be here for anyway. And, you'll hear later the benefits that we can really provide. And I think it's just going to help to streamline everything as well as the other side of it. Instead of breaking off, just have the conversation as one, solve the issue, hopefully, make recommendations and stuff like that, run it through chain of command and see what everybody thinks. But
And get a quorum a little bit easier.
yeah, that's always the initial, and I'd say even currently, now, there's certain things, there's, religious holidays that folks have to be away for. It's just, a little tricky. So, to have a few more people would probably just allow that to streamline a little bit faster and get up and running and start the meeting a little sooner.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I'll open up to the board. Questions, if you have any. Anybody? No. Okay. So again, thank you for stepping forward to provide the service to the community for free as a volunteer. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll be talking about the potential consolidation of the trails in the Conservation Committee in just a little bit. So thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
sir.
you.
Okay, so then the next item is the reappointment of committee members, and we'll have that in executive session later. Okay, then let's move on to business item C, which is emergency generator at 81 Main Street. And I'll invite Dennis, been waiting patiently back there, to come join us. Welcome, Dennis. So we've read through it, and just want to give us a summary of what the need
I'll give
is.
you a very quick summary. The memo is pretty clear. One of the things that was never put back in when the building was redone here was the emergency generator. I'm not even sure at that time if the emergency generator would run. It's similar to the one we had up at the highway garage, and it's so old it's no longer manufactured and you can't get repair parts. So that piece of it was off the table. The discussion that took place when dollars got tight in this building really reflected around the fact that the initial discussion came about that why do we need emergency power here, since the primary source reason was the police department. And when they moved, they had one for their facility. It wasn't shortly after we moved in, and Doug probably has a better history of it than I do, but the server room upstairs is critical. This building is actually critical in terms of operating 24/7 for emergency purposes, for lots of things, but especially the server room. And we had a couple of outages that lasted longer than planned, and quite honestly almost fried a lot of that equipment up there, which is very expensive to replace and quite unnecessary. And we've kind of waited for an opportunity financially when we could in fact do the generator and not have an impact either on the capital fund or on the tax base. As I put in the memo, this year, next year we will not have this luxury, but this year the fuel costs, we budgeted a little higher. We didn't use as much. We had a couple of other accounts. I think one of the accounts I looked at most recently, the energy use for this building has finally come around and is less than we anticipated.
Great.
This year we, and I'll save this, I won't save it for a later meeting, but I may be back to see you because I think some of the highway funds we may have underspent. We had a very late winter, very wet spring. It's very hard to do the projects we plan to do, to hire contractors because everybody's busy. You can't find anybody right now if you want to do any road striping. There's just a lot of, the winter affected everybody. And so we have some funds available, and we have the funds available to fix the generator problem for the building. It came upon us fairly quickly because I was looking at this. I wanted to wait for the statements that came out at the end of May to see where we were. So I didn't come to the board and say, let's spend some money that we didn't have. I reviewed those statements, looked at where we're going to be as of June 30th, and it's pretty clear we're going to have well enough of a safety factor to afford the generator and put it in. Original generator in here was about a 40 kW. We spent some time, Brookfield is a company that we've used almost forever as far as generators, for everything from our wastewater pump station down at Alderbrook to the highway garage to fixing problems, identifying problems. They've always been there. They've been quick service. So we gave them a call. They came up, they looked at the facility, went back, and very shortly afterwards gave us a quote. The first quote that we talked about was just basically to handle that server problem. And that's a little bit smaller generator. It's about I think I put in there someplace if I can find it. I will here, a 48 kW generator. A 60 kW generator will power the whole building. The generator cost, the difference in generator cost is $2,500. So and they fit on the pad that's out there. So we don't have to rebuild the pad. We do want to use natural gas. We've got a fuel tank out there, above ground fuel tank that carries its own problems as far as potential contamination of the ground and everything else. And so we can dig a fairly shallow ditch to meet the standards for depth of about 12 to 18 inches to get it across. So we're not going deep into the soil around the building again. We're very shallow. It's an area that we've dug up before, so there should be no issues that way. To hook it up to natural gas. So it's clean. It's a much quieter generator. It's about on the order of a person speaking. It's not on the order of a loud generator kicking on and making a lot of noise in the neighborhood. And that's one of the features of this particular generator, whether it's a 48 kW or the 60 kW. The large cost is back here in the electrical room. The transfer switch that's back here has to go anyway. We knew that when the building was done. We did not do it then, again, to save dollars. We could have set up the room back there at the time the building was done for emergency power. Again, the thought was, we don't need it, let's not do it. We've since, I think, learned our lesson. We do need it, we need to do it. That's the biggest cost. On the lower generator, you're only hooking up a couple of panels, so there's a lower electrical cost in the room to do that and a different type of transfer switch. If you're going to do the whole building, which I believe is really appropriate for the future. This is a long-term investment. It's a 20 to 30-year investment. Things change. We have a nice room here. We have nice office space for people that I think are comfortable in their desks and their positions. When I look back over my length of time here, not everybody's been in the same office all the same time. People have moved around within the building. And I think as you look forward, and I don't want to throw a bomb in the room, but the truth of the matter is there will be changes down the road. Whether we consolidate further or don't consolidate further, there will be further changes in terms of how we operate. And in my view, it's short-sighted to only do the server room when Vermont is 9 months of winter. We need heat in the building. We need lights in the building. We need a full operation. We're also into a situation now with what's happening with our changes in climate. We've seen it the last couple of days. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night because I kept watching the weather forecast, wondering if we were going to get really another one of those bombs that came through that destroyed part of the town. That's going to be that's common. If you look at it now, we're getting the New England states are getting a vastly different rainfall, high, short duration but high intensity storms coming through. And if they knock out power, and they knock out power for a long period of time, you have the police department, you have the fire department, but this is also the center of our government. And if we have to come in to function, it's a good place to set up and run. And I think that having this building on power 24/7 for the additional costs that we're talking about is a good investment. And so my recommendation is that the select board allow us to go ahead and do this, get the generator in, get the building covered, and prevent any future losses we may have, especially with regard to the the computer setups and the servers.
And that, the cost for that, for the one that do whole building, is that the 56K?
Yeah, and that's a high estimate. They want to, if the board does approve this, they're going to come back out, take a closer look at it, probably this week if that's a go. And they want to make sure that they've got the right information on the room and what's got to be connected up. The generator cost is actually on the order of about $35,000. So the question is, how much more do we have to do as far as transfer switches and wiring within the building to wire up all the
enable it.
circuits? And that, the engineer was not up to do that. They're going to bring him up to do that, make a much closer look at that. So I view that as a top figure and probably high.
Okay, the 56K.
But I did ask him for an estimate. If we're going to do it, let's find out what it is going to be going in.
Okay, all right, good, thanks, Dennis. All right, I'll open up to the board, questions about this. Mike, go ahead.
Dennis, is there any expected life differences between the smaller unit and the bigger unit? In other words, does the smaller unit have a 15-year life and the larger one have a 25-year life or anything like that?
They're almost, I mean, they actually are physically the same size. They're the
Right.
same makeup. They're the only difference is the amount of power that they put out, but they're both the same. They come. One of the things, it's a warrant. They have a complete warranty with 5-year coverage, which is pretty good. Which is the first 5 years of it. It is the quietest, and I got some information. It's the quietest generator available without custom housing. There's a lot of the other generators we not our own. We had to have a house over it and a noise attenuation. We don't have to do that. But and the other thing is that if you go purely by the code, and you can do different things with the code, but it should be pickup size to pick up the peak load. And
Okay.
so we did give them information, and one of the early things we talked about was, do we have history of usage on the building? And we actually do, because we've been in the building long enough. So we took all of our electrical bills, all the Green Mountain bills, and all the power usage, and gave that to them so they could make sure that the size was appropriate. So the answer is yes.
Okay.
It doesn't, you look at one, you look at the other. One's got a 60 kW on it, and the other's got a 48, but they're almost the same.
Okay.
And you're
And
trying,
And,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. And then the follow-up to that, I think I heard you say earlier in your testimony, it's a 25 to 30-year
Yes.
investment?
Yes.
Okay.
That's about what we had on the one up at the highway garage before that one, and the one down here. I mean, if you go back, these are original generators. And the generators have as long as they're well maintained, and that's one of the things they do have a maintenance contract, which we've done on some of our generators, but Jerry the mechanic also goes around and maintains them and checks them on a monthly basis. They're exercised monthly to make sure they work. So as long as they're well maintained over time, this one, the old one, we just ran out of time, parts, and age. We all age, I guess.
happens to all of us. Sue?
I was just gonna ask about maintenance, so, I mean, is that something that we are currently budgeted for, or will we need to add to the budget to?
I haven't thought about that at this point in time. I know that he gave us a quote that they could do maintenance for it. With the warranty coverage and with Jerry, our mechanic, I know he's doing some already. My initial reaction would probably be not to go for the maintenance coverage, that we would probably, at least for this year, for two reasons. One, it allows us to learn the system, to know what we've got to do, so we're familiar with it ourselves, which I think is important. And then if we're going to do it, we would probably budget for it, and you'd see it in a budget in another year. We'd call that out in a budget.
Do you anticipate, I think you said getting somebody up here, an engineer, to come up and take a look at the room and make sure that
From
it's...
Brookfield.
Yes, exactly. Do you anticipate that there would be any other prep expenses in addition to just the straight outright price of the generator? In other words, would there be a $1,500 bill worth of electrical or something like that to have it be able to handle the new?
Well,
Or
the
anything
transfer
along that
switch
line?
that's in there now has to go, so
Right.
that's a piece of it anyway. And then the wiring inside the building, we talked a little bit about that. We would put it, if you go inside the room now and you look inside, we're not going into any walls. Okay, it would be mounted conduit on the outside of the building, but it's got to tie between the transfer switch and the various boxes that are in there.
Right.
And that's the question is, how do you connect A up to B? Where do you put the piping or the wiring? And how do you make those connections? And that's what we want the engineer up here to look at, is what physically, has to be done inside the room to make those connections. Included in the price is also the cost of installing it, installing the natural gas line, testing it, digging for that with a ditch witch out there. So it's essentially start to finish, pay the bill,
Yep.
start it up.
Okay. That's good to know. I figured that it had an installation component that was part of the price, but
Yep.
being able to do the gas and whatever ditch witch or whatever else that we need to do there is, to have that included as well. In
Yeah, I
these
think the only thing
numbers
that we would do, which I don't see as their responsibility, but as ours, is to get rid of the old fuel tank that's sitting out there
Right.
and dispose of that properly.
Mhm. Okay.
Any other questions? Irene?
I was just curious if we did have an emergency, is this like good for 2 weeks worth, or could it run indefinitely if we had a 24/7 outage for a really long time?
If you keep the fuel going to it, it'll run.
Okay.
It'll run indefinitely. We've had some situations down at Alderbrook at the pump station where it's run a very, very long time. And again, that kicks in, but it's our and that one's an old, I mean, that goes back to 1984. And that's still functioning. It's a huge generator. I mean, it's bigger than any others in town, but that's been running effectively since '84. It's just maintaining it and running it on a cycle so you know when it's kicking on and letting it run. But yeah, we've run that one for a very long period of time. I think the longest has probably been 8 to 10 hours down there running.
Yeah, it's not run off a cylinder, right? It's run from a main line coming in from the utilities, isn't it?
What?
The gas.
The gas, yeah.
Yeah, it's Vermont Gas that pipes it, so it could
Yep.
run for as long as
Right.
you need it to.
As long as you have the natural gas source, you're fine.
Okay, other questions? Okay, what's the board's pleasure?
Be happy to do a
Okay,
motion
Mike.
if you wish, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Unless there's anything else. I move that the Select Board approve the purchase of a new three-phase 60-kilowatt generator for 81 Main Street from Brookfield Service from available fiscal year ends 2017 funds, using funds from the building accounts and, if needed, the public works accounts.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and any further discussion? The one further discussion point I'd like to suggest is if this gets approved, that we consider putting a line in the capital budget. So in 25 or 30 years, when it comes time to replace it, that we have the funds ready, treating depreciation as an operating expense. So I would just suggest we at least
Yeah,
consider
it's
that.
a large dollar
item.
sum.
Yeah.
And maybe something that we need to look at. I don't want to drive the finance department or Doug's successor crazy with thousands of accounts under one, but there may be some of those where we need to combine them. You know, for example, we have an
Yeah.
energy account.
It's less anticipated. is all that
And
might-
maybe we
yeah.
just, again, knowingly write the right words into the accounts that says we're going to be putting an extra X dollars next year into that account for this purpose. So there's a history of that, and that gets continued down the road so that when the time comes, you know you've built up funds in that particular account for that
For that-
purpose.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
that would be a good
that's
thing
a
to
good idea.
It's a
consider.
great idea.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion on the table to approve the purchase of the generator. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you very much.
And good luck.
night.
Thanks for keeping the lights
Good
on.
night, Dennis.
Okay, we're going to business item D, conveyance of easements in Saxon Hill Forest. And Greg, you want to lead that one off?
Mike here. So this goes back to the, excuse me, this goes back to the settlement agreement between the town and Allenbrook Development. And part of the, what was at your seats today is the copy of that settlement agreement. And then number 5, I apologize for not having this sooner. Probably about 2/3 of the way down. It says, in connection with Allenbrook's restatement and conveyance of trail easements in the warranty deed, the town shall execute a companion quitclaim deed to release certain prior trail easements over Allenbrook's retained lands. That's basically what this is. there's also a map in the packet I handed out tonight that shows the original trail easements, that's in color. And then next page, parcels A and parcels B are where those are going to be retained by Allenbrook, and that's where the easements are going to be conveyed to Allenbrook. So basically, this is just the notice notifying the town, residents, anybody else about that conveyance. And after those 30 days are up of the posting, looking for a motion for the board to let the town manager execute any actual agreement when that comes through to actually transfer the easements.
Okay, so this is something we agreed to back in February of 2016, and now it's just come time to put pen to paper and say, let's do it.
Correct. They, Allenbrook, they've gone through the local process in terms of permitting and subdivision. They're waiting on Act 250 at this point. When I've heard, Act 250 actually was about to issue a permit, or actually had, and then they had to double check a couple things. So they're still crossing their T's and dotting their I's over at the state, but sounds like this is pretty close to being ready, and just want to make sure we have it ready on our end for when the time comes.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Questions for Greg, comments? Sue?
Just have a question on the last line of the notice where it says Allenbrook Development Incorporated will be conveying land and easements to the town in exchange for this conveyance. Is that something that's also in the works? Like, do we expect to see a similar notice coming from?
You don't need to notify to accept land, it's just to convey the land.
Okay.
And that goes back to the settlement agreement, when they're conveying the 250 acres approximately to the town, that's in there. And then there's also some easements that's going to stay on the Allenbrook land to allow some access within the buffers and stuff like that.
Okay, but I mean, how does that transaction occur?
Oh, that'll happen, I think it's in the settlement agreement somewhere, but basically, they'll come in for their sand extraction permit locally. The town will issue that, and then they'll be submitting, there'll be a deed in the land records, would be my guess. I can double check on that, but yeah, transferring that over, lawyers will have the right language, and probably Pat will be signing off on it, but I can double check on the specifics.
Other questions for Greg on this? We good? Okay, what's the board's pleasure on this one? Anybody?
Make a motion. I move that the Select Board approve the notice of real estate conveyance that gives notice of the town's intent to convey easement rights on Allenbrook Development Incorporated's retained lands as depicted as Parcel A and Parcel B on a plat entitled Subdivision Plat Allenbrook Development 31 Allen Martin Drive, Essex, Vermont, and appoint the town manager as the town's agent to execute all necessary deeds and documents for purposes of completing the conveyance.
Thank you, Andy. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, any further discussion on that, on this easement? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one passes 5-0 also. So thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so moving right along, we're going to go to get an explanation about E. That's the approval for personnel guidelines. Doug, tell us.
Mr. Chair, the issue is whether or not the Select Board will amend the current personnel guidelines. These have not been updated since 2010 and are in need of updating for a number of things, updating for new laws and compliance requirements. But we'd like to have a discussion about those proposed changes, and with the pending ASME contract not yet ratified, in order to have a complete and thorough discussion about the proposed changes, it would appear that an executive session would be necessary to discuss these items.
Okay, is that clear to everybody? Yep. Okay, so then we're going to, thank you for that, Doug, that explanation. So we're going to move on to F, and wait for Doug to exit. Okay, so we have approval of employee resolutions. Pat, you want to walk us through that?
Our practice has been, as employees retire or leave us after they've been in service for a long time, that we have a resolution of appreciation for their work, their dedication, their loyalty, etc. And the custom is for you to read it into the record prior to their departure, and at a soiree, lunch, or breakfast, or some kind of gathering of the clan, we will present this and other items of note marking their service. So it would be appreciated if you would adopt and sign the resolutions of appreciation for 3 retiring employees.
Okay. Can we do these all in one fell swoop? Is it
Well,
or do you want to do them separately?
it's up to you. You can do them separately, reading them into the record, or you can adopt them, all 3 of them. We've asked Doug to leave just to
Give them
prevent
some
the,
surprise.
yeah, in case you decide to read it into the record, that he's not going to hear the same words
Yeah.
2 or 3 different, no, twice at least.
Great.
Just want to point out one correction that we caught right before the packets went out today on the resolution for Carolyn Gothier. The first line where it says, whereas Carolyn Gothier was hired as accountant for the town of Essex, that should actually be bookkeeper. So the correct version is ready to be signed, but save some paper to not reprint
Okay,
everything.
good catch. So what's the board's pleasure? You want to vote on these individually? You're okay doing it as a set?
I'm okay with a set.
I'm okay with a set as
Okay.
well.
Too.
Then I'd like to invite the clerk to please read them into the
Would
record
you like
for
some
us.
more water, Ms. Cook?
I just took some water just in case.
I'd be happy to refill your cup.
Do you want a motion
if
first,
need
or?
be.
Sure, let's do, yeah, okay. I would,
Going to move that the select board adopt and sign the resolutions of appreciation for Doug Fisher, Ernie Oakes, and Carolyn Gothier.
thank you, Irene. Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so if you could read those into the record
Sure.
for us, Sue, thank you.
All right, resolution in appreciation of Doug Fisher. Whereas Doug Fisher was hired as finance director for the town of Essex on September 28, 1991, and whereas Doug will be retiring on July 7th, 2017, and whereas Doug has been an invaluable resource in the town's financial, technological, and administrative advancements, and whereas Doug's operational and capital budget leadership has been essential to our success in financial management, and whereas Doug's team-oriented, approachable disposition and sincere and timely counsel has been a hallmark of his tenure, now therefore be it resolved that on the occasion of Doug's retirement, that the Essex Select Board, on behalf of the staff and citizens of the town of Essex, hereby extend our most sincere appreciation to Doug for 26 years of service in making Essex a better community in which to live and work.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Resolution in appreciation of Ernie Oakes. Whereas Ernie Oakes was hired as water/sewer operator for the town of Essex on June 25th, 1990, and whereas Ernie will be retiring on June 30th, 2017, and whereas Ernie has made countless contributions to the success of the departments of Parks and Recreation and Public Works, and whereas Ernie has always provided concern and assistance to fellow employees and the businesses and residents of the community in the performance of his duties, and whereas Ernie has been a helpful presence during emergencies, and whereas Ernie has shown a commitment to excellence throughout his career, now therefore be it resolved that on the occasion of Ernie's retirement, that the Essex Select Board, on behalf of the staff and citizens of the town of Essex, hereby extend our most sincere appreciation to Ernie for 27 years of service in making Essex a better community in which to live and work.
Thank you. And last but not least,
And her last name is Gothier? That is- Resolution in appreciation of Carolyn Gothier. Whereas Carolyn Gothier was hired as bookkeeper for the town of Essex on July 28, 1990, and whereas Carolyn will be retiring on August 4th, 2017, and whereas Carolyn has been a valuable member of the finance department throughout her entire employment with the town of Essex, and whereas Carolyn's suggestions for improved departmental operations have been essential for its success, and whereas Carolyn has led by example in areas of loyalty, devotion, and efficiency throughout her tenure in Essex, now therefore be it resolved that on the occasion of Carolyn's retirement, that the Essex Select Board, on behalf of the staff and citizens of the town of Essex, hereby extend our most sincere appreciation to Carolyn for 27 years of service in making Essex a better community in which to live and work.
thank you for doing that, Sue. Okay, so we have a motion to approve these 3 resolutions. Any further discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to business item H, attorney-client privilege. Pat, you want to give an explanation of what that's about, please?
Yes, I have an issue, had its origin.
Yeah, we skipped something.
Oops.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my bad. Good. Thank you. Okay, we're going back. All right, hold off on that one. We're going to go to G. I checked it off too soon. It's a request to combine Conservation and Trails Committee. And Greg.
I'm here, but if you'd let me, I have the chairs of each committee are here, and if you're willing
That
to
sounds
let
like
them
a
come
good
up and
idea to
speak,
me.
that's-
Sure. Want to invite you both up? Welcome again. So, yeah, we heard about the idea of consolidating the two committees, Trails and Conservation. So, why don't you walk us through a little bit more of the details, if you would?
Yeah.
You've heard me already.
And you've probably heard something to this effect before, but the Trails Committee and Conservation Committees have had a lot of overlap ever since I joined, and probably before that, in terms of our mission and the projects that we've been working on, and more so lately, especially with the spring and fall cleanup days at Indian Brook, and working with the street tree survey. A lot of the content is overlapping, and because both committees have at alternate times had problems getting quorum and retaining members, and there's mutual interest in the other's affairs, it seemed like a good idea to consolidate, to make it easier to get quorum, easier to run meetings, so that we don't have to separate halfway through, find different spaces to conduct the rest of our meetings, and generally save a lot of time and effort and hassle. So that is the request before you, and we have essentially combined our mission statements and sort of tacked one onto the other. Feel free to...
Literally, I think, right?
Thanks to Greg for putting that together.
Punctuation change.
And I did notice that this morning, after we had already approved it at our last Conservation and Trails Committee meetings, that we had neglected to include language about these committees advising the Select Board and Planning Commission on issues relating to conservation and trails, but we don't have to include that at this point. We can update the mission later if needed, but that could be an amendment that's made tonight at the Select Board's pleasure.
Okay, thank you for that background. Did you want to add anything?
Nothing in particular, just that again, we were looking at having, through attrition, we were going to narrow it down to 7, committee members. Some of the specifics on that, just, meetings would still be held the same. Nothing would change in that regard, just that it would be one joint meeting as opposed to 2. There's not really much else as far as logistics part of it.
And in terms of attrition, we would already have 9 members because I will
Once you
be
step down.
stepping down and joining as full-time staff. So that already leaves us with an odd number, so we won't have issues with voting. Not that we would have, I think, but...
Right, yeah, I mean, you probably get down to 8 eventually, and,
Right.
and if it's a split vote, it just means that motion fails.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, thank you. Questions, comments, concerns from the board?
Seems to make good sense.
Anything? Oh, Irene?
I would just like very much to make sure that second paragraph gets in there, because we've talked about acquiring lands for conservation in the future, should we ever have funds to do that. So I would love to see that as part of your mission as well.
Mm-hmm. The paragraph about acquiring
Aspirational.
lands or about advising the Select Board?
I think it's all the same, but I can read it if you want. It says, "The committee also advises the Select Board and Planning Commission on matters relating to the public understanding of local natural resources and conservation needs, development applications, and acquisitions of lands involving the above resources."
And that's in here, so.
So it's in the original
Conservation.
Conservation Committee mission. It's not was not technically part of the joint mission, and we realized that too late after already passing the motion. But it's completely up to the Select Board to actually change that and pass the official language.
Okay, I think we could, if the board so chooses, to combine them and then have an update to the mission at a later time to add this language and then to just get approved. And I think we could probably move forward that way if that's the board's pleasure. Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns on this? Andy?
I guess just to I didn't understand what you said.
Question?
I guess
Oh.
are you suggesting that the motion be that we dissolve and combine and also change their policy to include that paragraph? Or are you saying that could just come back as a separate business
The
item
second,
later on?
just come back, yeah.
Okay.
Because basically, it's really sticking the two together with the colon or something. You
Yeah,
got it?
that probably should have been. In the proposed mission statement, that was presented to the committee, so if the select board wants to add it now.
Yeah, that's true. Or you could add it now. I was just saying we could do it that way, but we could add it now and just have the mission updated. Yes, Pat?
Was there any reason other than it just
Omission?
sort of didn't make it? Was there any real reason why you wanted to do anything other than take the mission statements and put them into one as one?
That's essentially what we had discussed and everybody agreed to, and we just missed the language on paper, so.
Okay. Well, then, we just
Yeah, if we could do it tonight, I think that
I'm
would be
into
nice.
efficiency.
Pardon?
I'm into efficiency. I don't want to see it happen again.
Okay.
If we can Get it done tonight.
So what's the board's pleasure then?
Let's get it all done tonight.
Yep. Anybody want to make that motion?
Sure, I'll give it a try. All right, I move that the Select Board dissolve the Conservation Committee and the Trails Committee and create the Town of Essex Conservation and Trails Committee with the mission and powers presented above in this memorandum, including language, the following language. The committee also advises the Select Board and Planning Commission on matters relating to the public understanding of local natural resources and conservation needs, development applications, and acquisition of lands involving the above resources.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Do I have a second on
I'll
that?
second that.
Thank you, Irene. Okay, any further discussion on dissolving those two committees and forming the one Conservation Trails Committee with this mission?
What do you think about Memorial Hall? I'm kidding.
You're a funny guy. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, passes 5-0. Very good, good luck.
Thanks to all of you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thanks.
Really, we do appreciate it very much. Thank
We
you.
like efficiency.
Yeah,
That's what we're going for.
excellent. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, I think we're on to H now?
Eric, sorry I confused you with somebody else.
Okay, so business item H is attorney-client privilege, and now, Pat, if you could
Yes,
give us a rundown on
this-
what to expect.
This goes back to a topic that came before us some time ago about a possible building project, and it has sort of languished. I looked at the deed and had some concerns, and I have 3 legal opinions to share with the select board to sort of go through the issue to see exactly where we are right now. And I do believe that, given the opportunity to have that discussion in executive session would be probably a good idea.
Okay. Good. Okay. So then we'll talk about that later, and then in executive session. Then I'll move on to I, and that's approval of the June 5th, 2017 mission. Select Board minutes. Do we have a motion?
I would move approval of the select board minutes of June 5th, 2017 with select board member corrections.
Thank you, Irene. I have a second.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Let's start on page 1. It's a big one. There's 20 pages tonight. Page 2. Irene?
So, I'm just changing the name of Lamoureux and Dickinson to what it really is now.
What
Just
line is
in
that?
case.
Irene?
It's, what's 969, it says now Lamoureux, Stone, and Dickinson, but it's currently now Lamoureux and Dickinson.
It's currently what?
Lamoureux and Dickinson.
Okay.
So if somebody Googled that, that's what it would be.
Okay. Anything else on 2? Page 3. Andy?
Line 107, the first sentence ends in the word is. I think is can be struck.
Well, this is the direct translation from German or something, in which case the verb belongs.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on 3? Page 4? Page 5? Page 6? 7? Irene?
On 278, after the word "and," I'd like to insert the word "perhaps," because that's what he said, perhaps finally implementing.
In line 278?
278, yep. And then on 288, he was personally in favor of the thought of consolidation. So I'd insert those two words, but didn't know if that separate entity was the best way to deliver the results.
Okay, anything else on 7? Did you get that, Greg?
What was the second part of that?
After that, he did not know if that separate entity, we're going to insert those words. And Greg, all this stuff is on a copy that's over there where Sam usually sits, sorry.
Anything else? Anything else on 7?
Yeah, I'm going to delete on 313 one of those 23 member references so that we don't say it twice.
Okay. So wait to make sure Greg sees that. Got it, okay. All right, page 8. 9?
I have a question on 8,
Sure.
and I didn't watch the video, so I guess if somebody did watch the video, on 352, did where it says, which is common for technical experts in that field, is that really part of that comment?
Did you see that on 352?
I didn't watch that part of the video.
Okay, all right, then, never mind.
Okay, anything else on 8? Page 9? Sue?
On, sentence starts on 405, I guess, but so Ms. Cook still felt that it was a disproportionately large portion of the human services budget and then starting on 407 says, asked if it were in line with the mission of the funding. It wasn't a question, here's, and I put it in I said, noted that, so instead of it being asked, I said, noted that based on the category prioritization received in our packet, that the VNA serves a segment currently perceived to be the lowest in priority. So I wasn't making a statement on mission, I was making a statement of where that fell in that categorization that we received in the packet.
In that priority list that Andy had put together.
Correct.
Yeah, I remember that discussion. Did you get that, Greg? Yes. Okay. Anything else on 9? Page 10. Andy?
Line 416, toward the end it says, but it is helpful information to see how the funding is distributed. I like it to say, strike the word see and put the word inform. Helpful information to inform how the funding is distributed.
Right.
If I can continue,
Sure.
line 428 continues from the line before. It says, Mr. Watts noted that other groups such as the VNA, I would like to say also fund Meals on Wheels, because it's the same program they're funding.
It's not a separate one.
Not a separate
Right.
one, right.
Yeah, good distinction. Anything else on 10? Okay, we'll go to 11. Halfway through. Page 12. Page 13. And 14. Andy?
This is just a grammatical, line 628, there's an open paren that doesn't close, so I think the parentheses just get taken out. I should have just given them that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just in the future, things like
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, we should just submit
Yep.
hard copy. Okay.
Yep.
Anything else on 14? Irene?
On 629, since we're right there, let's add the year number, November 2015. And then on 630, it was investigation by others after the comma. Not my investigations.
So what's the change?
So it'll be, and investigations by others underscore deep misgivings.
Okay, so take out her and put that in. Okay. Anything else on 14? Going on to 15. Irene?
So on 649, the first two words could be taken out. It's a merger task force. On 653, if we could just take out the word remodel at the end and give initial caps to police facility committee, which it was. And then on 656, at the end, what I said, committee members are not always able to stick their necks out. And I would put a period actually where the comma is in 656. And I would add the following words: she is willing to ask hard questions, and then I would leave the rest of the wording as it is.
Did you get all that, Greg? Anything else on 15? Page 16. 17. Page 18.
So this is just, I don't need to share it. It's in the thing. Minor thing.
So you're good?
I'm good.
Okay. Page 19. And page 20. Okay. All those in favor of the Select Board minutes of June 5th, 2017 with Select Board corrections signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Okay. I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I would move approval of the consent agenda with select board member comments.
Thank you, Irene. Do I have a second on that one?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. Comments on Irene?
So on the first smaller check warrants on the front page, it talks about IT tablets for select board. We haven't seen them yet. We hadn't really had a discussion about them. We received notice a few months ago that you were thinking about getting them, but that's all I recall about those. So I just wanted an update.
Yeah, I apologize if I misunderstood. I thought it was a pretty clear sense of the board to go ahead with the tablets.
Okay.
And so they've got them and they're in the process of configuring them and so on.
Okay. Cool.
Stay tuned.
Okay.
Travis is excited.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Irene?
Then on the next thicker one, about halfway down, we have a charge on page 1 of Atlantic Golf and Turf, and I was wondering what PK, I guess that's Parks Compost for the PF is. And I just wondered if we could get more local compost, or is that not what I think it is? For $3,700. That's a lot of money to spend outside of Vermont or Essex or wherever.
Do you see that? It's almost
It's on
halfway down.
14015.
It is compost. I don't know if it's a special compost.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
I'm not sure what PF means.
Playing fields, perhaps?
Could be.
And then I have another question on the
Sure.
third page, which has to do with the police department paying for car washes. And my recollection, which may be faulty, was that once we had our own police facility, we could wash the cars in-house, and that would no longer be a bill that we had to pay other people for.
Sorry, I don't
But
recall that.
it's just-
Was that,
That was one of the things I thought we used to sell the police facility ourselves at least.
I have no recollection of that, but that doesn't mean we didn't have this
We've had a-
conversation.
We've had a contract with that car wash
Forever.
as long as I've
Right.
been here.
I realize we don't want to leave them, but if we can do it in-house, it's $100 more bucks we can save.
Well,
So good use of their time?
Is that part of anybody's job description?
well, I was just gonna say, let's recognize who we have employed over there, washing cars.
Be an expensive
I don't
car.
know.
It'll be an expensive car.
Is this dispatch doing that too in their spare time?
Oh
or
my
what?
God. Oh, that's a
I
good
know they
thought,
do
though.
other things, right?
Every
They're
clerical
very
job
helpful.
description could be rewritten, yeah.
I'm wondering if, and Irene, I certainly don't want to put
Yeah.
words or thoughts in your mind, but I'm wondering if perhaps we had a discussion about hosing cars off in the wintertime for salt or something like that, as opposed
That
to a
could be.
full-blown wash.
It could be.
So,
It may have been discussed and maybe not
That could be.
carried forward in the final version of the plan.
That's very
Yeah.
possible.
Because you went to all those meetings, right? So you conceivably could have heard it.
Institutional memory can be faulty.
So I think I'd rather have them out on the streets than washing cars.
check.
Okay, how about we share? Sue, and then we'll come back.
Oh, Irene's still going. She can go.
Oh, you have more check warrants?
I do.
Okay, all right, then,
It
yeah,
was a good
let's stay on the
week.
check warrants.
It's a good week.
I have something in the Myers Park supplies for $3,300, and that buys a lot of basketball nets or something, and I was just curious if you happen to know offhand what that was.
A manufactured wood carpet.
Whatever that is.
Or under this play gym?
I'm guessing
the
it's under the
New World.
playground equipment.
Very cool.
For the kids to land on.
Okay, yeah, better than rubber or whatever. Okay, thank you.
As opposed to the mulch that kind of gets sprayed everywhere?
It's very
Okay.
cool.
Anything else on check warrants? All right, looks like you have a number.
I'm good.
Good,
Thank you.
okay. All right, now we'll come down to Sue.
I realized that Dennis was anxious to leave, but I had a question on his dump truck bed sheet here, where the decision was made to replace the bed versus fix the bed. And there's no reference to like the condition of the truck in general, like the life that I'm sure played into the decision, right? You don't replace versus fix if something else is gonna be going, or there's other rust
Right,
in some
yeah,
other
that's a good point.
area, or,
So you're asking what the condition of the truck is? You'd
right,
like
in
to know that?
general, right?
Okay.
Did that get factored into the
I
decision?
don't think you can answer that.
Off
but
the top of my head, no, but the fact that he mentions that it's not due for replacement until 2021, I'm sure that was a factor in deciding whether to do it. I guess that mechanically it's in good shape, and it was worth the new body.
I was going to say the same thing. I mean, he makes reference to the fact that we ordered it originally with a lesser grade of metal, I think, for the bed, which kind of necessitated this repair.
Okay. Okay. Andy?
On the meeting schedule, it says that our next meeting is at Lincoln Street instead of the police station. We just want to make sure we say that so everybody recognizes that it's moved since last discussion we had.
Right. Good. Yeah, it's going to be at 2 Lincoln.
Yeah.
Instead. Irene?
So I'm all about hazards mitigation. It would just be really nice if they had also highlighted what changed in this document, because even reading it once every 5 years is a lot, I think, to ask of select boards. So if there's anything the RPC can do to make this easier for us, I would love that.
Yeah, track change would be beneficial. And as long as we're on that document, on page 20, table 3-4, it says Essex and Essex Junction extremely hazardous substances storage sites, and Global Foundries has a bunch listed, and most of those, I think, may be liquid, but there's a bunch of other toxic gases that I presume they have that I don't see listed, and I'm not sure if they should be listed or if they were intentionally left off, but it would be a good question to ask if toxic gases are covered by this.
So if the answer is yes, then the follow-up question is, what are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And this is one of these that I would be.
Pardon?
I'm sorry.
Silane, exactly, in the bunker. Yeah, that's kind of, exactly.
I'd be very willing to proof this on a screen. Unlike most of the things that we get from you, I'd be very willing if they could mark that up to read that on a screen, the changes.
You mean
I don't
a track-
need you to print this out 150 pages for everybody again. If you can get a newer version with the track changes, that's where I'd make the exception. I would look at that electronically just to save the tree.
So this will be coming back to us as
This
an
is an
agenda
action
item,
item
right?
on
This
the
is just
13th, just because of its volume and
Right.
excitement level of reading.
Exactly.
You felt you needed some time with it.
Yeah, it's a big important document.
It is.
Will we get the track
Track changes?
changes?
Well, given my, we're probably gonna make the call tomorrow to
Thank
see if
you.
we can't get it. And if we can get it, if it's already done electronically, we can ship that to you. So that's ASAP. And Max, I don't know about your gas question, how fast that could be answered.
Okay.
But we'll try to dig that out too.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Sue?
I was just curious on the meeting schedules and events, the radar list
Yes.
pages, where we now have status, a percent complete status. What went into that? Whose point of view, whatever, like.
Ours. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, it's a little bit subjective. We sort of broke it down incrementally. I was hoping at one point to put in notes to provide a little bit more detail, but just didn't get around to doing that this time. But hopefully in the future, this is still a living document. We can provide some more information. But yeah, difference between 50% and 60%. We're just going to go with kind of quarter, 25, 50, 75, 100%, roughly based on where we stand.
We used to do that a long time ago, and then we couldn't really come up with the fine delineation between 50 and 55 or 55 and 65. It was left really to the staff, individual or group who was doing the work on it as to what their sense was. And I mean, that was just the best that we could offer as our best guess. But it's still better than just letting it sit there without you knowing that something has or hasn't been done on it. It isn't just sitting there collecting dust. So, this, as Greg said, it's a living document. We're going to fine tune it to where it makes some sense to you all.
It's a quantitative number for a qualitative assessment.
Ooh, wish I'd said that.
Irene?
So on 15, we have consolidated charger changes, which I don't think has anything to do with our new generator. So it's probably charter changes on that one. Thank
That's
you.
on, okay. You see that?
Appreciate that.
All right. Anything else on consent?
Charger changes might be easier to do, though.
Yeah, especially in Essex Junction.
On the board, commission, committee members not seeking reappointment, I would like to offer exit interviews to all departing members, whether it's in person or by phone, if they so choose. I'd be happy to do those, and then I would summarize those and bring those back to the select board, and we can have a discussion in executive session about those, probably. Okay? Okay. Any other?
You want to do mine right now?
Concession? Yeah. Mike?
I was just going to ask Patrick if there was anything, if these are just kind of routine reasons for people stepping stepping back, as in, I've been doing this for too long, or I just feel like I've done it long enough, or was there anything else that was major as far as reasons for people to step down?
With the exception of Darren, I really don't have any inside knowledge on why people stepped down. I would look to the individuals for those comments if they wish to share them with Max and bring them back to the select board.
Okay. Okay, any other comments on or questions about consent agenda? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. So now we're on to an executive session, and we had 3 different things to go in, but I think each one can be covered by just the one document, right?
That was the
goal?
indent, sir.
Okay. And the folks to include in there, I think the only thing I'd like to request that we add would be the village trustees president to join us for at least one of those topics on the
Pending litigation.
pending litigation.
Or the
No.
attorney-client privilege, I'm sorry.
Yeah, attorney-client privilege. So, do I have a motion from somebody to go into executive session? We need motion 1, or we need 2 motions. Andy?
I move that the Select Board make the specific finding that premature general public knowledge of the Select Board's position concerning proposed labor relations agreements, premature general public knowledge of the Select Board's position concerning proposed public official appointments, and the general public knowledge of confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the body would place the town at substantial disadvantage.
Thank you, Andy. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any further discussion about motion 1 for executive session? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Entertaining motion 2, Andy.
I move that the Select Board enter into executive session to discuss the following topics: the proposed public official appointments pursuant to 1 VSA Section 313A3, and to discuss proposed labor relations agreements pursuant to 1 VSA Section 313A1B, and to discuss confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the body pursuant to 1 VSA 313A1F, to include the manager, director of administrative services, an assistant manager, and the village president for the topic of attorney-client privilege.
Thank you. That was a mouthful. Do I have a second on that one?
Second.
Thank you, Irene. Okay, any further discussion about going into executive session now? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. I guess we'll go to upstairs. Okay.
We have like a bunch of documents we have to sign. Should I bring those up there, or do you want to do them now?
Yeah.
Yes.